Over 150 games. I looked at over 150 eShop games this year, and of those 150, I suggested 120 to you as eShop hidden gems that I thought were can't miss. But amongst those 120, there are a few that stand head and shoulders above the rest. Let's take a look now at the best eShop games of 2024. I really enjoy the Raba series, and when I played the original one a couple of years ago and featured it here on the eShop Hidden Gems, I didn't really expect there to be another one in the series. Because, I mean, they kind of left it on a perfect note. The first game was spectacular, but what I've discovered now with Raba in the Phantom Library is that they've really improved upon every single aspect of the original game. The graphics are better. The characters are more endearing. The gameplay is significantly more solid. For something that I already enjoyed, they've plussed it in every particular way. One of the things I really dig about this is that you are able to choose whatever direction you want to go in this game. Whatever book you want to inhabit in the Phantom Library, you're able to do. It's a little bit Mega Man in that regard. And one of the neat things about Raba, if you've never played the series, is that Raba has 4 companions with her at all times, and you're going to be able to call upon their abilities to manipulate the environment, to defeat different blocks, to attack enemies. It's just a spectacular game.
Raba? Oh man, the Cub is something incredibly special. So think about some of your favorite 16-bit generation platformers based on animated films. Things like The Jungle Book or things like Aladdin that really leaned into just this gorgeous animation style and challenging gameplay while still being engaging and fun. And that's what you get here with the Cub. This is set after a great ecological catastrophe. It's something that's referenced immediately at the start of the game, so this isn't like some big surprise like what happens in... Well, I'm not going to say it in case you haven't played it, but it's something where you're established from jump that you are this child that was left behind after the ultra-rich fled Earth to go to Mars, and you adapted. You found yourself immune to the poisons of the environment. You were able to grow, to evolve, and become this character that you're going to be playing. Now, as you're playing, you're going to go through the game and find different items that give you a hint of the different catastrophes that have happened, about the excursions from Mars back to Earth, as well as finding remains of people that have returned, people that have died, and finding items that are going to give you a little bit more insight into what's going on with the rich that are returning to Earth from Mars, including, what is really awesome, an astronaut helmet, which allows you to listen to the radio, and the music in this game is magnificent. I am just absolutely enthralled with this game. It's stunning to me. Like, it feels important.
So when I initially requested the code for Jet Rider, I was just kind of taken in by the fact that this felt a little bit like Gravatar. And I'm a big Gravatar fan, so I really wanted to try this one out. But I was not expecting the game I got. This is so much more than what Gravatar is. This is a really intriguing physics-based shooter with a wicked sense of humor, a fantastic visual style, and incredible gameplay. This one legitimately shocked me with how much I loved it. I found myself playing it for hours when I initially got the code because of how great it is. You play as Jet Rider, and despite the fact that you are presented as a big-time hero at the start of the game, where you defeat a dragon, which is pretty cool, you're actually a garbage man. And you need to go find some recycling stuff to make some money, and that's the entire way the game is presented to you. And as you go through the game, you're going to discover different weapons and different items and different abilities. You're going to be able to upgrade your gear. You're going to find different things that are going to give you access to different areas in each level by using things like mines or powered-up shots. You're going to have enemies to attack, really creative environments, and just incredibly fun gameplay with a brilliant physics system involved. I really cannot recommend Jet Rider enough. I am so excited to be able to play this and to show it off here in this review because I'm honestly blown away by how great it is. Like, immediate contender to appear on the Game of the Year countdown at the end of the year because of how good it is.
Now, I have no nostalgia nor loving memories of the Philips CDI. Quite to the contrary, I remember seeing it and learning about it after it was already long dead, and looking at it going, that's stupid, that looks terrible, those Zelda games are dumb. So when Arzette, the Jewel of Faramore was announced, and my friend Chris from the Game Dad Show told me about it, and he said how good it was, I
can't believe how loudly my eyes rolled, because there was no way this game was going to be good. But I kept being told how good it was, and I became more and more intrigued by it. So I put in a request for a review code, and mercifully Limited Run provided it. And I've never been so happy to be proven wrong, because this game is ridiculously charming. The characters are fantastic, and absolute takes on what the characters were like in the Philips CDI games for Zelda. The CD-ROM-esque graphics where you actually speak to a character and there's a slight delay before they load in is brilliantly done. The gameplay, though, the gameplay is where it's at. So I wasn't expecting much from this, but what I got was a fantastic platformer with great combat mechanics, a really, really fun design element, and just a beautiful gameplay experience overall. It is silky smooth. I cannot tell you enough how much I love this game. For a game I was prepared to not like, it's fantastic. Promenade is one of those games where when I got it, I initially put in for the review code on this one, and thank you to the publisher for providing it. But when I initially put in for the review code on this one, I wasn't 100% sure I was going to cover it, because it was one of those games where I looked at it and I went, well, this just kind of looks like a typical platformer. It doesn't really look like it does anything special. And then I got in game, and this game is just amazing. Like, just so much heart and soul, so much charm, and just brilliant little gameplay that's just cleverly disguised and cleverly hidden. So it is a standard platformer, but there's a little bit of Klonoa in it as well, because as you grab enemies, you're going to be able to use them to jump a little bit higher. Of course, you can also throw them at other bad guys to take them out. But as you play, you're going to find different abilities for your little squid guy that runs with you. Like, you're able to have him attached to grappling hooks and pull you up. You're able to grab enemies, like I mentioned, and use them to jump. It's a really interesting game. You're going through each level and collecting the different cogs to be able to open up further levels in the Great Elevator. And it's just fun. Like, it's very simple. It's not a hyperactive or a twitchy game or anything like that. It's just good platforming and fun game design. And sometimes that's all you really need. Any game that starts out with Charles Martinet introducing things is something that I am going to be a fan of. And Bit Trip Runner 2 it's brilliant. So I have played this game a ton, literally. I own this on Steam, and it's something that I played exclusively there for a very long time. It's a game I love. It's a concept that I think is brilliant. So much so that Choice Provisions, the team that made this, when they released Hextech Mayhem, which is the League of Legends story on the Switch, I immediately bought it knowing it was going to be a fantastic rhythm game, and I was not disappointed. But we're talking now about Runner 2. Runner 2 is a rhythm game where you're going to be able to collect different abilities as you play, whether it's going to be to slide, to kick, to dance, to glide as you jump. It's a fantastic game, and it's deceptively simple in the way that it plays, because all you're doing is running and avoiding obstacles. But it's brilliant in the way it executes, because not only is the game fun to look at, and it's one of those games that just kind of keeps on giving, because if you're playing it, you are only focused on the task at hand, what is immediately in front of Commander Video, or the Half Merman, or Hamburger Wet Fart. These are all characters that you can play. And the backgrounds are not something you're going to notice, but if you're watching someone else play, you can take in the absolute just oddity that is this game and all the crazy things that happen in the background. This is not one I had on my bingo card this year. I did not expect to ever get a sequel for Euphoria, let alone one released in the States. And I want to thank the publisher for providing a review code for this game, because it's just so neat to see. So this is a classic platformer that originally released from Sunsoft back on the Famicom. And it was weird then, and it's weird now. Like, as you play, you're going to have different characters that you're able to team up with. Each character does something a little bit differently. Like, Ochan can swim, but your main character can't. You have these things called pop-ons that you're able to throw at enemies that'll clean off the purple goop off of them. You're able to use different attacks like a butt bounce. It's just a really charming and just deliciously bizarre game. Like, it's
if you were to put up the entire Sunsoft library and pick one game out that probably wouldn't fit here in the West, Euphoria would probably be top of that list because it is that strange. But we got the sequel, and the sequel just lands it. Like, it's such a cool thing to see, and it was such a crazy random drop from Nintendo, of all people, to all of a sudden say, hey, you're getting Euphoria 2. It's fun, though. Like, if you haven't had a chance to play the original, try to find a way to play it, either emulate it or pick up a copy on Famicom. But this one here, the sequel on the Switch, is fantastic. When Penny's Big Breakaway got announced, this got previewed in a Nintendo Direct last year, and I was immediately intrigued by the design. Now, in a lot of ways, this is one that maybe I probably should have waited for a physical release for it, because it's something I want to hang on to. It's something I'm going to want to keep, but I think I'll just double dip on this one, and it's not something I do often. Now, what is Penny's Big Breakaway? Penny's Big Breakaway is a 3D platformer where you play as Penny, a street performer who wanted nothing more than to perform for the king. And unfortunately, she stole his clothes, whether intentionally or not. And she basically got made public enemy number 1 and is now being hunted by the king's penguins. If it sounds ridiculous, that's because it is. You use your yo-yo for movement, you use your yo-yo to attack. It is just a ridiculous concept that is executed so brilliantly well. Now, that's not to say it's an easy game. It's a tough game. It's very hard. I have had plenty of occasions where I've been frustrated on levels where I haven't been able to get through with them, where I haven't been able to beat them, just because of the game's kind of continuous locomotion. Now, it's not something where Penny's always in motion, but occasionally when you start rolling or you start moving, you're going to catch yourself in motion and you're going to try to do something else, and you're just going to have to keep following that locomotion. Sometimes that knocks you off the edge of a platform, but I can't help but love the charm inherent in this game.
And the 2024 award for Best Mega Man Game goes to Berserk Boy. I love Berserk Boy. This is the best Mega Man X game I've ever played. Now, I'm not a huge Mega Man X fan. I promise I'm going to give them their fair shake later this month. In fact, I'm actually going to be playing through all of them. But Berserk Boy does everything that Mega Man X ever set out to do and does it so well. Now, yeah, we do have the advantage of being, 25, 30 years after the original Mega Man X released, but this game plays so incredibly well. It has such an incredible locomotion, beautiful animations, fantastic combat, a wonderful high challenge level that I just can't help but look at it and say, this is something that Capcom should have been making. This is such a wonderful spiritual descendant of classic Mega Man X gameplay, and it just works perfectly well. My friend Frank from the Super RPG Friends gushed about this game, and I didn't have a chance to play it until a couple weeks after its release, and I'm telling you, this game is just incredible. Berserk Boy is legitimately one of my favorite games of the year.
I am the second daughter of the Tsubaki Koji family. No one taught me how to be patient.
The Rose and Camellia collection might be one of the... I got to word this carefully because I have to say something that's going to sound like I'm being derogatory towards this game, but I'm telling you straight up, this is some of the most fun I've had playing a video game in years. But the Rose and Camellia collection might be one of the dumbest video games I've ever played. But like on a WarioWare level of dumb. This was described to me as a Japanese soap opera meets Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. And oh my God, is that accurate? You have some of the cheesiest storytelling, and it's deliciously cheesy. Like, this is the kind of storytelling that you want to be eating popcorn to, because what's going to happen next? Who's going to challenge whom? Who's going to slap next? The gameplay is straightforward, simple, and easy to understand. You use the Joy-Con to slap. You use the Joy-Con to dodge. You are able to go into slap rushes to beat the ever-living hell out of the people that you're fighting. It is legitimately, looking at it just, like bird's eye view, looking down at this game. It is a game where you play as someone who slaps the crap out of someone else. And it works so well. It works so incredibly well. I have had so much fun playing this game. My family enjoys
watching me play this game because it's so ridiculous. And Cryptstalker is a game that when I first saw it, I really had a lot of high expectations for because it looks like a Castlevania game. And getting into game, it feels like a Castlevania game. The gameplay is very similar. You have both a whip and a firearm that you're able to use, and the enemies come at you just like they do in Castlevania. The levels feel very Castlevania, but nothing feels exactly like it doesn't feel like it's a ripoff. It feels like it's a loving tribute to Castlevania, and everything just works. The gameplay is very challenging and is very aggressive, not so much in the fact that you're swarmed with enemies or that you have incredibly difficult fights that you have to get through, but the level designs are very cleverly made that you need to make sure you're using the environmental puzzles and the environmental triggers to be able to get through the level successfully. Like this level that I'm in particular right here, there are blocks that you have to stand on that will raise or lower parts of the floor, and if you're getting a little bit frantic, you're going to get yourself squished, you're going to put yourself through spikes, something like that. This is a really clever game with some really good difficulty modes. There's also a lost sequel that they're calling, which includes 6 extra chapters. There's really great graphics. You can play both console and handheld version, which is really cool. I'm really impressed with this one. It might shock some folks that I'm not the biggest Contra fan. Like, it is not one of those signature memories of positivity I have from my time playing NES games as a kid. Quite the opposite. I found Contra to be incredibly frustrating. So when Operation Galuga got announced, I was very skeptical. But hope springs eternal because it was being developed by WayForward, who I adore, who I think is just amazing. And they did Contra 4, which, kind of kicks ass, so I was having some really high hopes for this game, and I'm so happy that this game lives up to every single expectation I could have had for it. First and foremost, it's a WayForward game, so you know it's going to look and sound great. Not only are the music and sound effects excellent, the look of the game is wonderful, the voice acting is great, everything just kind of hits. There's a ton of game modes to play. There's the classic arcade mode, there's challenges, there's multiplayer combat, there's unlockable characters with different abilities. There's all the classic Contra weapons. Like, it hits every single note you would want a Contra game to hit. And yes, it's difficult. It is difficult as hell. It's exactly what it should be. It's fantastic. I am having so much fun with this one. And legit, this is the first code I've ever gotten from Konami, so I'm a little bit on cloud 9 because of that. But that does not change the fact that this game is a ton of fun. Now, I know there's been some kind of belly aching about the game from some folks online, but for me, it doesn't miss. I really enjoy it. All right, I'm calling it right now. Pepper Grinder is probably going to be my game of the year. So take note of this when December rolls around and I do my game of the year countdown. Pepper Grinder will be in the top 10, if not number 1. I can't remember a time that I have been more eagerly anticipating an independent game release than Pepper Grinder. When I first saw the trailer for it, immediately I thought of Drill Dozer. And I think a lot of people did because, it's a game featuring a drill. You're going to go in that direction. But I'm telling you right now, this is nothing like Drill Dozer whatsoever. This is one of the most clever physics-based platformers I have ever seen. The gameplay is incredible. The music is wonderful. The look of the game is magnificent. And there is such a deep variety to every single level you go into that you can't help but be amazed at the love, care, and craftsmanship that went into each and every pixel of this title. There are different weapons you're able to get to use as you go through the game that is going to make the gameplay a little bit differently. Like you're seeing here, I'm picking up a Gatling gun and firing it with my drill. But you're also going to be able to use your drill to launch yourself through the air, to attack different enemies, to move your way through the level, to find hidden things. It's a smorgasbord of unbelievable gameplay experiences, of incredible design decisions, and just phenomenal storytelling and wonderful independent game development. This is, I'm talking constantly about this game. This is something that I've been so excited to play. And when the demo got released, I immediately downloaded it. I played it for 45 seconds before I turned it off because I said, yes, I am instantly buying this game. It's that good. It is one of my favorite gameplay experiences
ever had.
There's a phrase I like to use on this channel where I say sometimes a game is important. And it's not necessarily something that's kind of genre defining like a game like Gears of War or Batman Arkham Asylum, but something that's a little bit deeper than that, something that gets a little bit more down into the emotion of things. Now, I don't share a lot about my personal life on the channel, and it's just the way I am, but there's something I need to share here just based on my life because of this game. This is a cat and his boy. I am a product of a divorced house. And I was very lucky growing up because I knew my mother loved me, I knew my grandparents loved me, I knew I was going to be taken care of and I was going to be accepted and loved. But it's still hard to grow up that way and wonder, why doesn't your parent love you? Why doesn't the parent that isn't there care? And pets are a big part of being able to cope with that trauma and kind of work through that. In this game here, A Cat and His Boy is important in that regard. You play as Midnight, a kitten, who is helping Leaf, the boy from the title, cope with the fact that his parents divorced. And it's about his journey towards not necessarily acceptance, but understanding, I guess, is probably the best way to put it. And just realizing that he's not alone and that there's always someone there, even if it is just a mischievous little kitten. This is an important game. I do think that it probably impacts me a little bit more just because of my background and who I am, but I am just truly in awe of the story they told and how beautiful of a story it was. When I heard that Yoshitaka Murayama, the creator of the Suikoden series, was making a new game called Auden Chronicles, I was immediately on board. I have been following this game for years now, ever since it was first introduced on Kickstarter back in 2020. It's a game that I was instantly drawn to. It's a game that I was instantly intrigued by because I love the Suikoden series so much. Suikoden 2 is my favorite game of all time. So being able to get a new game in the same vein as the first and second Suikoden games were things I was intrigued by. And I don't think this game disappoints. I think it delivers in pretty much every level. Now, there are certain things about the Switch port that I will say are probably less appealing than others. The load times are pretty high, I will say that, but the gameplay itself is solid. The actual design of the game is wonderful. Everyone is voice acted, which I think is brilliant. All of the main characters, it's fantastic. It's really everything that I felt Suikoden should have been, and now we're seeing it realized today. It makes me sad that Mr. Murayama passed away because I would have loved to have seen this series continue under his eye, and anything that we're going to see from here on out is going to be inspired by it for sure, but it's going to be a little bit different than what we would have experienced otherwise.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Splintered Fate, when I saw it advertised last month, I was like, what is this? What is going on here? Is this a Ninja Turtles roguelike? Where the hell did this come from? And I was just blown away by the concept of being able to get a game like this that is just it's made for me. Like, I have been a Ninja Turtles fan since 1987, before the animated series. Like, the original comics from Eastman and Laird were the ones that I read that got me hooked on the characters, and I have been a fan since then. And I love roguelikes, and Hades was like my favorite game of 2021. I am blown away by the fact that I get a Ninja Turtles roguelike. Nintendo Life called it Hades in a Half Shell, and that is so perfect because that is exactly what you get here. You get to play as the 4 different turtles. It's just amazing. There's single player, there's multiplayer. Each turtle has different abilities. The levels are fantastic and massive. The boss fights are wonderful. The voice acting is great. There's nothing in this game that misses. I am absolutely blown away by the fact that I might have a Ninja Turtles game as my game of the year 2 years in a row. So if you've been following the channel for a while, you know I'm a big fan of action platformer hack and slash games. I talked about Lady Sia when I talked about GBA games. I've talked about the Pirates of Dark Water on the Sega Genesis, and this here is Abathor, a 2D arcade action platformer for up to 4 players, and I am here to tell you it is absolutely spectacular. This is such a fun game. You have 4 unique characters, massive stages with some awesome power-ups and different enemies that you're able to fight, and each character fits a different archetype. It's pretty cool. You've got the Barbarian, you got a Valkyrie, you got an Archer, and you have a Mage. It's a really wonderful game that does some fairly ambitious heavy lifting that I think is really fun.
And the music in the game is great too. I really dig it. And a lot of times with games like this, or with just games in general, you can get these amazing experiences, but it can be kind of overlooked as far as like what a story is. But the lore behind this game is incredibly strong, is very detailed and very in-depth, and it's something that I really enjoy.
Get ready!
I don't think I've ever gotten my credit card out faster than when I saw SNK vs. Capcom SVC Chaos was releasing on the Switch, because one of my favorite arcade games coming to the Switch, and I'm going to be able to play it whenever I want. It's going to have 36 amazing characters from both SNK and Capcom, and it's going to be fantastic fighting action. Yes, please, bring it to me, pump it directly into my veins, because I need to own this game, and I do, and it is amazing. If you love fighting games, there's no reason for this not to be in your digital collection, because it is a wonderful title. It is a wonderful version of SVC Chaos. It is so much fun, and it is so well balanced, and such a fun game to play, with a great, just kind of goofy, idiotic storyline that all these ridiculous SNK versus Capcom games have. It's just fun. And for my fighting game fans, this does have rollback netcode for online play, and it does come with a hitbox viewer, which is pretty dope if you're asking me. That is a great addition to have for a fighting game. It is.
Now, those of you that have been on the channel for a long time know I'm a huge fan of both deck building games and roguelike games. Like, one of my favorites is Slay the Spire. I think it's an absolutely brilliant game. We've got another game that's a little bit Slay the Spire later on in this video too. But today I want to talk to you about Batro, which is a game. Shout out to LL Cool Games, Lindsay, for suggesting this one to me, because she has impeccable taste in games here. This is a deck building roguelike where you are playing a game based on poker. You're assembling poker hands, but you're also building your deck of cards to draw from. It's a really fascinating title, and it sounds like it's very simple, and it is a very straightforward experience to understand. Like, if you have any knowledge of poker hands, you can pretty much dive in and play it right from jump. You don't have to worry about anything. But once you get into game and you start getting the different Joker cards and the different abilities and the power-ups you can buy after each round, the game's strategy level goes through the roof. Take 1 part Contra 3, 1 part H.R. Giger concept art for Alien, and 1 part robot body takeover body horror movie, and you get Iron Meat, which is the best Contra game I have played in a very long time, and that includes Operation Galuga, which I really enjoyed. This is such an over-the-top, fantastic run-and-gun game, where everything is big, every explosion is massive, every alien encounter and bad guy encounter that you have is kind of mind-blowing. It is a wonderful, incredible title that I couldn't believe how amazing an experience this was. It's legitimately one of the best run-and-gun shooters I've ever played. It's always fun to find an unexpected Zelda-like game digitally on the eShop when you're not expecting it to be anything like that. I saw this game here, Crypt Custodian, and initially I was attracted to the key art, which is just adorable. Like a little black cat with a broom, I'm down. That sounds ridiculous enough that I'm going to love it. And then I got into game, and I was met with this really deep and really, really funny, with a tongue firmly planted in its cheek, story about this poor cat that died, and just being the nature of a cat destroying some things, happens to be labeled a bad kitty and has to clean up after the dead for the rest of eternity. And when you get into actual game, it's a Zelda-like. There's puzzles to solve. The combat is action RPG oriented, just like classic Zelda games. There's tons of stuff to find, unlockables to add to your character, just huge boss fights. It's really kind of amazing. Straight up, I am not the target audience for Rugrats Adventures in Gameland. I was not a fan of the cartoon. It was a little bit after my time of like heavily watching cartoons on Nickelodeon. I much preferred Ren and Stimpy and Doug and things like that. Rugrats wasn't my thing. So I didn't really have any expectations for this game. I didn't expect this to be exciting. I didn't expect it to be fun. And instead what I got is like a stupidly brilliant Super Mario Bros. 2 take with 4 different characters with different abilities that all play differently, that are all fantastic renditions of their characters from the animated series. The music is killer. The gameplay is fantastic. Level design is wonderful. Like, it is absurdist
ideas that were like just every episode of Rugrats. So it fits in perfectly with the world that the babies would see in the cartoon. It's fantastic. And hey, you know, you can never complain when Reptar makes an appearance, right? The game that really made me stand up and take notice in the most recent Nintendo Indie Direct was Peglin back in August of 2024. I saw this and I saw a game that reminded me immediately of Peggle from the Xbox 360 PopCap days. It was a game I loved and it was super simple. It was basically Plinko from The Price is Right, where you were bouncing a ball around and taking out pegs to, you know, find multipliers in different items and things like that. And it was such a fun experience to see kind of a resuscitation of that idea with Peglin here. Really intrigued me. But I didn't pull the trigger on this game until John Riggs told me about it, and he mentioned that there were RPG elements, and it totally is. It's a mix of classic Peggle and Slay the Spire, so there's a bit of a deck building mechanic here as well, except it's ball building. Read into that what you will, say about it what you will, I don't really care, but as you play the game, you're going to find different power-ups that give you different balls to bounce around on the pegs in the game, giving you different abilities like multi-ball or a super bouncy ball, things like that will take out more and more and more pegs, racking up your score and using that ball to attack the enemies at the top of the screen. There's a lot happening here, and as you play, you're going to choose which path to go on to find different treasure items, to fight different monsters, to gain money. It is wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. I'm blown away by the quality of this title and how much fun it is. This is going to be on my Game of the Year countdown. I can almost guarantee it.
I always get really excited when there's a new release from my friends at Flynn's Arcade, and thank you to them and every other publisher that provided review codes for this video. It's a true privilege to be able to look at your games and to be able to talk about them. As always, if folks are curious, I'm not paid for any of these. These are just codes that are given to me, and any thought that is expressed in these videos is my own. It is not pre-approved by the publishers. It's 100% my thoughts. But let's get back to Cash Cow DX. First off, I suck at this game. Terrible at it. Absolutely awful at it. But much like Donut Dodo, I sucked at that until it finally clicked for me, and I expect the same thing to happen here. This is a throwback to classic 1980s arcade games. It is a single-screen arcade game. It is fantastic. It looks incredible. The sound is great. It's silly. It's goofy. It's fast. It's fun. And it's dirt cheap, which is one of my favorite things about the Flynn's Arcade games, because not only do you get an amazing arcade experience that you can play for 5 minutes or 5 hours, you don't have to put a big monetary investment into it. This is Now, I don't know if the Plucky Squire is my favorite game of the year right now, but I can say without hesitation that it is easily my favorite concept of the year. The idea behind the Plucky Squire is amazing. So, this game is from Devolver Digital, and it, at first glance, feels like a Zelda clone. And in a lot of ways, it is, but it takes everything about Zelda and turns it on its head. It's not just a game where you are simply going around and killing enemies. There's puzzles to solve, but they're not traditional Zelda puzzles, although those do exist. It's stuff where you have to utilize the fact that you are in a storybook to change words, to use adjectives, to change enemies that are on the screen or blockages that are on the screen to let you proceed further into the game. There are different gameplay aspects. You're able to hop out of the book, which takes you from a 2D planar game into a 3D action-adventure game. You have boss fights that resemble Punch-Out. You have just a huge variety of gameplay options present in this title, and while not all of them 100% land, the concept and the idea behind this game is one of the most promising things I have ever played. So Yars Rising did something that I didn't think was possible. It made me give a crap about Yars Revenge. Now, before anyone gets up in arms here, I am not the target audience for Yars Revenge. I was never an Atari fan. I didn't grow up playing the Atari. It's not something that was ever really interesting to me. I really started gaming with the ColecoVision, but really got into it with the NES. So I kind of bypassed the Atari 2600. So Yars Revenge holds no emotional or nostalgic appeal to me. Hi, boys. What's going on? What's going on, Tippy Tappies? Beans, do you have anything to say? Anything? Anything at all? Spork, your turn. Words from the dogs? Yeah? Okay. We're going to stop. Oh, I wish I had gotten that. That would have been adorable. Anyway, but Yar's Revenge here does something that I didn't expect. Like, it made me care. Because it takes what WayForward does best in making a platforming game and incorporates aspects of Yar's Revenge into it to make me really interested. So the idea of the game is you play as Emi Kimura, who is working for Kotek, and you have to go through and really just kind of hack their systems. And the idea behind the hacking is that you play Yar's Revenge to do so. And it was really interesting to be able to see that and play it and enjoy it, because it wasn't something I had ever really gotten into before, but they really crushed it here. I'm very much enjoying this one. Now, I really like this game. I'm very excited about it. As a heads up, there is a physical release of it, so if you are a physical collector, be sure to look for that one. I don't know what initially drew me to Bakaro, but I think I had basically searched for games that have demos on the eShop, because that's always a great way to kind of get an amuse-bouche, an appetizer, if you will, a sampling of what a game is going to be like. And when I saw that Bakaro was up there, and I really kind of dug the key art style, I decided to check it out, and I was absolutely blown away by the gameplay that Spike Chunsoft put in play here. This is a game that would not have been lost on something like the PS2 or the PS3. It is a classic 3D platformer collectathon that doesn't lean on tropes like the N64 did. It actually improves it, and it feels like something, like I said, like from that PS2 or PS3 generation. It's beautiful to look at. It's hilarious. The gameplay is varied, that's how you say that word. The gameplay is varied and fun and fluid. It is a really intriguing game, and it's something where I have had so much fun playing it, and just the character and the appeal of the different regions and the different characters that you're going to meet are amazing. Let me go on record as saying anything that Thunderful makes, I'm in on. Thunderful, formerly known as Steamworld Games or Steamworld Studios, something like that, are the guys behind the Steamworld games, and I have liked literally every single game that they have made. Every single series of games in the Steamworld universe explores a different genre, and Steamworld Heist is a tactical strategy game that is set on a side plane as opposed to a top-down view, which is a really interesting way to look at things. You get to play as a crew of pirates, and you have to go to these different missions in each level, and you have to defeat all of the bots or discover the different treasures that are hidden there and fulfill the objectives for the mission. Now, Steamworld Heist, the original, was my favorite Steamworld game up until Steamworld Dig 2 released. And Steamworld Heist 2 here takes everything that the original Heist game did and improves upon it in every single way. You have an actual ship you have to move around. There's naval combat now. Now it's rudimentary and it's simple, but it's still there. The exploration is paramount. You have to find different floating treasures in the world. The characters are enjoyable. There's a lot of callbacks to previous Steamworld games. It's exactly the type of game you would want it to be. I was excited when this game got announced. I'm even more excited having played it. Like, I played this game for about 2.5 hours when I was capturing footage, and I didn't even realize it. It's that excellent of a title. We've gotten a lot of really amazing kind of like tribute video games this year, and Nikodero: The Magical World is a love letter to all things Donkey Kong Country. This game is absolutely fantastic. First off, it's got a beautiful visual look. Like, the graphics in the game are absolutely stunning. The music is wonderful. The sound effects in the game are really good. There's even voice acting, which I really like. And, like, down to the point that this is such a love letter to Donkey Kong Country, you even get, like, rideable animal mounts, which is really cool. It's a very cleverly designed game. And while it doesn't really go out of the way to try anything daring or new, because, I mean, it doesn't. It's definitely something where you are playing a Donkey Kong Country game. Where it really sets itself apart is the fact where it also kind of leans into a little bit of Crash Bandicoot, where you actually get like chase behind levels, where you have to follow your character like up and down the screen as opposed to side to side. It's really clever. I'm enjoying it. The music in the game is spectacular, like I mentioned. It was composed by David Wise, and just a really, really solid platforming game here. Slam and Roll is not the game I expected. So when I originally was contacted by the publisher to get a review copy of this game, I looked at the screenshots and I thought it was going to be just a simple kind of sports-based platformer. And instead what I got is an absolutely brilliant single-screen arcade game that is a love letter to things like Snow Bros. The gameplay is fantastic. Each character that you're able to unlock, who specializes in a different sport that you're able to rescue as you play,
has different abilities and plays just a little bit differently, that there's so much replay value built into this game. I'm legitimately blown away by what this game offers. Now, there's a few little, like, kind of piddly things that are kind of getting under my skin a little bit. Like, there's some translation issues. This was clearly developed by a team where English isn't their first language, but you can overlook that stuff for an absolutely lovely, wonderful, fantastic experience of gameplay here that just is really magical. And there's like over 200 levels to play. So there's tons and tons and tons of gameplay value here. The second Metal Slug Tactics got announced, I said I'm getting that game the day it launches. And the second Metal Slug Tactics became available on the eShop, I immediately pulled the trigger, and I could not wait to spend my money on this game because I just love the Metal Slug series so much, and tactical strategy games are one of my favorite genres. And this game does something remarkably well. It blends the beauty of Metal Slug with a tactical strategy game, and it doesn't miss a beat. It feels like a natural fit, which I did not anticipate. I went in with some trepidation on this because Metal Slug is a run-and-gun shooter, and I did not know if it was going to translate perfectly into a tactical strategy game, and it just works. There's a ton of different maps for you to choose from, lots of characters from the Metal Slug series to both unlock and fight against. There's a really neat sync mechanic where you're able to kind of line your characters up the right way, and when they attack, if they're lined up appropriately, they're going to attack together, so you can actually deal more damage that way. And you really need to think about positioning and things like that in this game, more so than in other tactical strategy games that I've played. Absolutely loving this. If you are a fan of Metal Slug, this needs to be in your digital collection. There is also a physical release of it, so definitely look into that if you're curious about it. Now, when I have a choice between Michael Myers and Ashley Williams from The Evil Dead, I'm going with Ash every single time of day. Now, you can't go wrong with either Retro Realms game, but the one I want to talk about today is Ash vs. The Evil Dead. Now, both of these games are $24.99, and both of them will operate out of the Retro Realms shell as kind of like standalone arcade machines, but Ash vs. Evil Dead is one of the strongest 2D platformer hack-and-slash games I have ever played. Now, this is bloody violent, it is over the top, it is gory, it's gross, it is a hard M-rated game, but it is absolutely brilliant, and it is 100% a love letter to both the original Evil Dead and Army of Darkness series, as well as Ash vs. the Evil Dead on Stars. You play as Ash, there's other characters you can lock as well, you have a bunch of different abilities and skills that you're going to level up and be able to unlock as you play with different combos and different weapons and things like that, and it's just amazing. This is a game that I would have loved to have played on my Super Nintendo or Genesis back in the day, but we have it here today. I do so love discovering fighting games that I was not familiar with. This is the updated version of Rage of the Dragons. This is called Rage of the Dragons Neo, and it's awesome. So I had never played the original Rage of the Dragons, so I'm going into this game completely and utterly blind, and I am absolutely blown away by not only the mechanics behind the title, but just the overall fun factor and the incredible updates to the original game that I am just loving. You have 16 different characters you're able to choose from, which gives you over 80 character combinations, as it is a tag team fighter. This is a 2D fighter, so it's going to be more like classic Street Fighter or classic King of Fighters. You're able to hot swap between your characters as you play. When one is KO'd, you continue the fight as your second character in a new round, and you're able to keep fighting the remaining characters on your opponent's side. The gameplay is fast and varied and really enjoyable. The character designs are unique and really well done, and there's a bunch of different modes in the game as well. There's a versus mode, training, dragon challenge, which actually gives you like challenges to complete in the game. Hey, hence the name, right? Ranked and casual matches, lobbies for online for up to 8 players. It's excellent. I absolutely really love this game. It has been a lot of fun to play, and I really dig the fact that Qbyte has released this into the world. I love a good arcade racing game, and I love ones that really do something a little bit different, and that's what we get here with Victory Heat Rally, published by Platonic Friends. I want to thank Platonic Friends for the review code for this game. I was very excited about this when I saw it announced. I was very excited to try it out, and it does not disappoint at all. Victory Heat Rally is an arcade racing game. You basically hit the gas and go. You are going to use your brake every once in a while, but for the most part, you want to drift because drifting is how you get your boost meter set up.
You're able to select from a series of different characters. There's a bunch of them to unlock. And as you play, you're going to be able to upgrade your car, change the different settings so the car handles differently or accelerates differently, and basically just do everything you would expect in a racing game, just with a crazy coat of paint with some incredibly creative track designs and track layouts. It is so much fun. It is super fast, it is incredibly enjoyable, and it is one of those classic racing games that I just am immediately drawn to and love every second of. Eagle-eyed viewers will recognize this angry, enraged red man or green woman on screen right now from the fantastic Anton Ball that I covered on the channel a few years ago. This is the follow-up game in that series called Anton Blast, which is just incredible. This is one of the most kinetic video games I have ever played. It is all about movement, all about locomotion, all about just destruction and blowing stuff up. It is wonderful. This is such a fantastic, just cathartic experience where you are just wrecking shop all over the place. And it's great because you're doing it to beat up the devil himself. That's right, Satan is the one you're going after because he stole all your booze. And it is time to get that booze back. And you are on your way through each level to just destroy as much as possible, find as many secrets and poker chips as you're able to, and get to the end before happy hour ends. It is wonderful. It is frantic, it is fast, it is crazy, it is incredibly enjoyable, and it is just such a wonderful, wonderful experience. Now, I will tell you, this is rated T, but some of the language in the game is pretty hard, so be aware of that if you are buying this for a kid. Understand there is some harsh language in here. I'll admit that naming a Mighty Morphin Power Rangers game as a hidden gem might be stretching the terminology a little bit, but based on the fact that when I mentioned this game in my Switch licensed game video a couple of weeks ago, a lot of people were shocked that it even existed, I'm counting it. And as someone who is not a huge Mighty Morphin Power Rangers fan, for me to suggest a Power Rangers game as something that you should play and you should buy, understand that it is not nostalgia tugging at my heartstrings here. It is quality gameplay. Atari made something magical here. And I gotta thank them for the review code, because I reached out hoping to be able to review this, and I'm so happy that they were allowing me to do that. Digital Eclipse did the gameplay on this one, and they absolutely crushed it. You get to play as any of the 5 Rangers. The beat-em-up stages are fantastic. You go through, you fight classic enemies from the Power Rangers series, and then you actually get levels where you pilot the Zords as well. There is so much to like about this game, and this is such a love letter to the series of Power Rangers that I just can't help but appreciate it, and I can't help but enjoy it. I'm a sucker for a licensed game anyway, but when a licensed game is done to just be excellent, it's a really wonderful experience. This is up there with Shredder's Revenge as far as I'm concerned, as far as quality beat-em-ups go. Those are my picks. Those are my favorite eShop titles from 2024. Let me know in the comments down below what you think. Which ones were your favorites? Were there any that you played that I suggested this year? Till next time, folks, I've been Jay. Appreciate you spending a little bit of time with me. Remember to play more games, stay square, and take care. I'll talk to you soon.